everybody. Welcome to Chris's Chat and Babble, CC&B as I like to call it sometimes. Today I've got Mark Bullen with me. I first met Mark 10 or 12 years ago. We went for a beer. Things went quite well from that point on. He didn't like me to begin with because I was trying to get him to do some of the stuff internally at Oracle. But Mark's had a long and illustrious career. long and illustrious career that spans both Oracle and Nokia. Mark's now at a company, CEO of a company dealing with the telco area. So welcome, Mark. Thanks for joining me today.
It's a pleasure.
Well, yeah, there we are. We're commenting on how nice your window is, and the fact that in some ways we're kind of back to where we met maybe 15 years ago. At on-site at TVP.
Far, to be honest. Although I have got my back to the window now, as opposed to so I don't actually see this view. Unless I go more into the office. But anyway,
obviously become important. You see, I always remember that one. The important people always have the back to the window. So there you go.
Of course, yeah.
So Mark, your career that's got you to this point. We obviously met during the telco side of things with the CGBU, as it was called then. What I guess my question to you is how have you ended up here? Has this been a career path that you've chosen, or has it been a case of you've just ended up in places? You've changed a bit over the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. Do you mean from day one? So getting into telco, or do you mean since we met?
How did you get here? Yeah.
How did I get here? How did I get here? So, essentially, Chris, I was when I was at school, I was looking to, as you know, with respect to sort of motor vehicles, motorbikes, cars, whatever. I've got a bit of a background with them and used to race motorcycles, motocross. So I was into mechanical engineering when I was back at school. That's what I wanted to do, was mechanical engineering. And unfortunately, for one reason or another, I didn't get to my university of choice. So what that left me with is looking, and that was due to things going on when you're 18, and I won't go into those details. But that left me with looking for a different career. And at that time, where I was born, which was Coventry, there was a good firm back then called GC Plessy Telecoms, which basically did all of the telecommunications for the UK back then. And they said they would sponsor me through my degree, etc. So it saved me having to go back and to do retakes in essence at sixth form. And they took me through all my training of telecoms and software engineering and managerial studies, because we combined with Jaguar cars at some various points, because they were all in the Midlands. And so from there on, through GEC Plessy, finished my degree and moved over to Fujitsu Telecoms in Birmingham, where I started working on some different things around passive optical networks and around broadband as it was then. And so continuing on with network equipment effectively.
So do you think your sort of engineering background, because you mentioned the sort of engineering side of things, do you think that's what got you into being sort of a successful project manager? Because in engineering, when you take an engine apart, it's a series of logical steps, and if you get stuck, you've got to try and work stuff out. Do you think that was part of what took you on? Because I've got a background in engineering, didn't make it to the project management side. I just talk about it instead of doing it. But do you think there's a lot of synergies there with the sort of the telco type industry?
Yeah, I think there is. It gives you a good background, doesn't it, Chris? Because when you're working on those kinds of things, those technological problems, issues, solutions, and if you've got a goal in place, where you need to go and get your motorcycle car ready for a race, you've got to get through certain things to get you there for Sunday, or when you come back from Sunday, you've got to do a load of things during the week to get you for the following week, right? So that puts in your mind, to get things done in a procedural fashion that is basically a logical combination of activities that then enables you to, in the end, deliver what you want to do, your race,
Yep.
So there is a good background there, and certainly sort of working things out and working things through, because obviously nothing, even in those days, nothing was straightforward. There'd always be some kink and some chink that you'd have to logically work through. And that's obviously very similar to, working on projects and programs. So these days, there's always going to be hiccups, and there's always, different ways of solving those and solving them effectively and efficiently. So
I think as well as a C-level man now, it is very much that type of thing, isn't it? There's never a prescribed solution to a problem. Otherwise, it would already have been done by now. So, yeah, a lot of that comes. It's interesting because you said, when you take it into the motor racing stuff, which, we both have very much in common. I guess if you can visualize the end product, which is the win or the car doing well or you doing well, as you said, then it's a lot easier to then step backwards and think, okay, what do I have to do to achieve all of those?
Yeah.
And I guess project management and actually working in IT is pretty much the same, actually. And I guess it's kind of interesting because one of the things we did a lot of was actually trying to get people to understand where the project was going to. And I think it's only now talking to you, I've actually sat there and thought, actually, yeah, you're right. Take it into a practical solution. If we all know what we want it to look like, then everyone will work towards that.
Yeah, exactly. And then, logistics and everything comes into it. You've got to get the tires, you've got to get the oil, you've got to get, and delivering a project when you're working across, different departments, different groups, different companies, similar sort of thing, really, and making sure it all lines up at the right times, just in time, because you don't want to shed load of tires, at the wrong time. So
we'll put on twice the number of tires and get twice the amount of grip. Yeah, it doesn't quite work that way, does it?
Can't get the car out of the garage. Yeah, so you learn by mistakes, don't you, as well, Chris?
Very, very true. Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, maybe here we are. We should go off and start a company that really pushes the motorsport with how you manage to do well in business. I think that's a great idea. So how did you join? How did you join Oracle? Were you an acquisition, or did you come into Oracle?
Yeah, essentially, from Fujitsu, I moved into the OSS BSS world of telecoms, and that was with Nortel. It was essentially a small company that had gone into Nortel. And then Nortel decided, luckily, before they went bust, that they didn't like the software industry and the telco software industry. They wanted to be pure equipment vendors. So they decided to sell off their pieces of the telco software side, and they sold off a portion of the OSS to Metasolv. And Metasolv then were an American company who then got acquired by Oracle. So that's how I got into Oracle, really, was through an acquisition, as many companies have done, right? That was in 2007 when we were acquired by Oracle. Metasolv was a small firm, a very good firm, very very driven and into a lot of new technology. There's a lot of stuff that is still being sold by Oracle today, and clearly Oracle acquired a few more companies into the telco world, into their comms business unit, as you know, Chris, and basically I ended up sort of going through the ranks of within Oracle, really, to get to the position of delivery lead for Europe, Middle East, and Africa before moving on to Nokia.
Yeah, and in terms of the BRM product and ECE, were those things that came to you from Metasolv, or were they parts that got acquired in?
Yeah, no, they were acquired actually just before Metasolv. Oracle acquired a company called Portal, and Portal had BRM with a thing called Pipeline back then, but it wasn't ECE. ECE was something that was created and invented by Oracle after those acquisitions. As part of the comms business unit. So ECE is clearly, their product now, but BRM originated from Portal, and you'll still see some Portal aspects, if you like, on the BRM side.
It's funny how some of those legacy sort of names still carry on. See it with other parts of Oracle. You see this sort of thing branded next to Oracle, and it's like, who's that? And then you realise it's all come part of that. So what's been the biggest change you think in the telco industry, maybe to date? And then the next question from that is, what do you see is going to change, in the foreseeable future? What do you see?
Yeah, so some of the biggest changes more recently, I guess, are the move to SaaS and the move to cloud native. technology, cloud native platforms. Now, obviously, Oracle weren't sort of super keen on that to start with, but so they were quite a late starter. But then
Larry was clever enough to work it out and say, actually, I got
yeah,
it wrong, which is a hell of a good
yeah.
leader, isn't it?
Indeed, and fair play to him. And they're doing extremely well with some of that now. I think for us in delivering that software, we had to make some significant jumps to be able to do that delivery because around cloud native, because it wasn't just a new technology. It was all about shared platforms, all about understanding what the implications of those shared platforms were, how they scale, how they perform, and also the DevOps around that, i.e. the pipe, as it's known, the DevOps pipeline, i.e. how do you deploy, how do you do automated testing, nightly builds, how do you do the monitoring of things when they're in service, how do you do the deployments without affecting service. All of those things started to come into effect. So I think from a technology point of view, we've gone very much from this is my platform owned by Joe Bloggs, and he knew it from day one, and he had all that experience, to a common platform now that as a team, that no matter what the application is, it's similar underlying technology that everybody sort of should understand and should work with. So it's becoming very much a more, if you like, automated and more cross-industry technology solution in the underlying platform. Obviously, the applications, each do what they, have always done, I guess, from an OSS BSS perspective. If you think of it from a high level, it's still activating services. It's still monitoring the inventory that's used by those services. It's still doing bills, but very much so from a sort of a SaaS basis, i.e. a shared platform basis, across many other apps and probably many other units within a telco. So yeah.
Do you think that makes sort of the job of recruiting people easier or more difficult? Because it used to be you had so many different specialists in so many different areas. Do you think now you're going to have sort of agnostic specialists? I don't know whether that's a bit of an oxymoron there, but people who are just good generally, and you can plug them in anywhere rather than needing them to be very niche.
So the same with any new technology, and this has happened through years and years and years. When a new hot technology comes in, people need to learn that technology, and the industry needs to catch up. Right, so it comes in, I don't know, from universities, from Google, or wherever it's coming in, this technology, and there isn't the skills out there because it's new. So there is, we saw this when everybody was moving from the old style software of COBOL, Fortran, etc. Everybody running away and going towards C and C++ and all the rest of it. And we're in another cycle like that. Okay, so all of the new cloud native technologies, people are desperate for those skills, and there isn't enough of them. So what you will find is that right now it's a niche, or it's a specialism that there isn't much out there. So it's commanding a certain a certain amount of if you like demand where the supply is stretched. However, it will get there. It will catch up. And then you'll see those old specialist skills that people have moved away from, they will become niche. And if people are still on those old platforms and still on that old stuff, they'll be commanding a much better revenue.
I hear fabled comments about people who are COBOL, Fortran experts, earning a fortune because no one knows how it works.
Yes,
and
exactly.
obviously you've got something there. But that's a really good point actually you're making, that, as you said, it comes in waves and in cycles. And this is just another wave.
So, it is another wave, but it's also increasing efficiency. Let's not forget that. And through when I first started out and I talked about GC Plessy Telecoms, we were controlling software by writing down the versions of the files in a logbook, right, and making sure that we'd all written it down well, and we actually drew a release list, across that logbook to say these are the files that are in this release. And I mean, obviously, all of that is, so well automated through GitHub and all the rest of it these days. And obviously we've seen very many technologies as we go along for software release, like CDS and ClearCase, etc. But things have moved on. Things do move on, and they get more efficient. They get, and it makes the human job supposedly a little bit simpler. So I think whilst some of those skills are still needed, but things are moving to make things more efficient and hopefully save us time, similar to what they're saying for AI nowadays. AI will save us time.
So what do you see in the future then? Do you think AI, I mean, that's a really too simple question. Do you think AI is going to make a difference? I think the answer is yes, it is.
It will, yeah.
What do you see happening in the telco space particularly that you think is going to be significant? Do you where's the Mystic Mark? Here we are.
Yeah. I mean, having worked in Nokia and obviously being very close to network, core networks, you clearly see that, sometimes fault resolution is a clear problem. It takes human effort. It takes human brains. No matter how many tools you've got around it, it takes human brains to try and figure out where the real problem is, because you've got things popping up all over the place. Oh, it's over here, or it's over here. Red lights going off. And what that is, there's only a bit similar to a car. There's only one problem somewhere, but you've got to go and check so many things out in many different places before you can get to the real thing. Now the question is, do you go and swap boards out here, there, and everywhere? I think what AI will do is try and bring all that data together. It will understand or try and understand some of that data and bring some logic towards dealing with all that data and coming up with a sensible solution, or at least a few solutions, as opposed to, there's 10 nodes going off and, go and investigate all of them, send out people to each one or whatever. Let's get this data in, let's analyze this data, and let's do some artificial intelligence around this so that we can make some better suggestions. So that's one area, Chris. There's many others, obviously. I don't know whether you sort of keep up with Salesforce or any of the things that they're doing from a CRM perspective, but they're clearly saying that AI is their future, and AI from their perspective means about understanding the customer, understanding the customer's data in a lot better way. It doesn't mean, I understand Chris or I understand Mark. It doesn't mean that. It means I understand the way this customer is operating and what they're looking for, in general terms, and therefore I can make more significant suggestions as to, what this guy needs or what this guy could do with, in terms of a sales process or in terms of, some kind of process for selling, in that sort of industry. So I think, it will help. It will simplify things. It will make things a lot better, from a time saving point of view, Chris. And
but are you worried about big data? Because I mean, there's lots of talk about big data. It comes across everything. Utilities have moved towards, this would be something that you won't be surprised about from a telco side, but they've moved towards hourly billing, half hourly billing, and they have this analysis paralysis, where there's so much data coming in. What do you do with it? And I guess that's where a company like Oracle comes into its own, because of course, what is Oracle? It used to be a big data company. I'm not certain whether Oracle still is a big data company, but it does so many other things as well. But then Salesforce and all the rest of those tools coming in. And do you think AI will help with that? It will go off and work out what the intelligent questions are.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because obviously there's so much data out there. Processing all that data and understanding and making something of that data is has always been a difficult job. That's why you had companies like SAS. What they're called, SAS, whatever they're called. And some of those analytics companies.
Yep.
They need to get, that data has always needed to be processed. And I think more and more people are understanding that. With the advent of AI, I think it will help towards understanding, okay, well, that data is relevant. That data is not relevant for this particular, item, this particular job that we're trying to do, or this particular type of information that we're trying to do some, background, information gathering to sort of help the job along, help the particular task involved. So, if, for example, quoting the robot, the AI robot washing the windows, there's no point in him understanding what the roof looks like, or what the data around the roof is. What's the point in that? Yeah, the data's there, but it's not going to go and wash the roof.
No, that's what I was going to say. That's quite interesting. So where do you see your current company then? What difference are you trying to make to the telco space? How are you actively pushing yourselves out there? What's your unique selling point, or is there a unique selling point?
Yeah. So clearly, Celcom Solutions are predominantly a professional services organisation, but what we try to understand and what we try to do is to make the deliveries that we do more efficient. So a big area that we've been looking at has been the automation of testing, the DevOps pipelines that I mentioned around, well, not only cloud native but also on-prem. What can we do from a testing point of view that basically makes things more efficient? Doesn't mean that you need 100 people. We can bring it down to a much smaller team of specialists who work from a sort of business analysis perspective to understand what those tests should look like and what the results should look like, as opposed to as people that have got to go there, handcraft code, handcraft probing into every single detail of a test run, and understand whether it's been successful or not. So now from an automation perspective, we can have software that does that, software that looks at that and brings all those points together under a common platform. You drive it from, if essentially those business analysts drive it from a GUI and understand, what those tests will do and understand what those test results will look like. And of course, that's all run from an automated perspective. There's obviously a need for simulators and there's need for people to create those things. But, when we're creating a sort of 4G and 5G telco suite to do testing, there'll be niche cases. There'll always be niche cases that need putting together. But essentially, it's the same for every single customer.
And do you see things like testing being different skills? When I go back to my early career with BT, that was when I was supplying people there. They had a test department there. And as I said, what they found is that software developers made terrible testers because a software developer, it's that old joke, isn't it? If you go to the shop, can you buy me a pint of milk? And if they've got eggs, get 6. So he comes back with 6 pints of milk because they had eggs, and it's that type of logic that's in there. And as a tester, you've got to think about things in a different way. Do you think that's still the case with the automated stuff? I mean, are you looking for people who can only test, or do you look for developers, or is there a differentiation anymore?
So as I said, the testers of tomorrow need to be understanding more of a business aspect. When you're doing unit testing, for example, on software, then you're looking at your piece of software, you're looking at how that code is running and where the errors are, assuming it's compiled, of course, and how that fits together. You're not necessarily looking at it from an end-to-end perspective. So I think the best testers, from my perspective, are the ones that can look from a more of an end-to-end perspective to understand, what are we trying to get from and to,
So that's just the start of your business profile then, and then you guys then go in and obviously fix and create all the rest of the solution around that when you find the problems.
Yeah, indeed. So the solution that we've created, or is a series of things that isn't. Is part of that is automated testing, but it's also about the CI/CD pipeline and understanding, what tools it is around that. Because obviously, to do any testing, you need a series of tools, you need a series of processes and procedures around that to be able to use those tools efficiently. You can't just say, "Oh, these are the tools. Go on, off you go, go and test." It's a case of everybody lining up and understanding what the processes, procedures, and tools around that.
And can you apply that across all telcos? Can you take your experience with telco A and just then push that across B, C, and D, or do you have to start again from scratch every time?
No. Oh, the idea is to do that reuse. But I guess for years we've always talked about how much reuse, right? So particularly in this, with the solution that we're providing, we're expecting to have about 75, 80% reuse. There'll always be niche cases. There'll always be changes that are needed. That's assuming that there's no fantastic technology coming along. Let's just say that, right now we're obviously looking at 4G and 5G use cases, and the sort of delivery around that, and for an automated test suite. So, any new technology that comes along, 6G, whatever, there's going to be new use cases, right? We will have to. So, but anybody doing 4G and 5G, yeah, there'll be a massive amount of reuse. So
big library to come along and just roll that stuff out and plug it back in. But as you said, the changes come, and I guess as well with things like the cloud solutions that have been offered now. Do those type of solutions, do they get rolled up into the base product that it can then be reused by other companies, or do you still maintain that part yourself?
Yeah. So what we do, we sort of there's two ways really of that. So we would bring it in as part of a managed services operation that we could bring in, and deliver it from that perspective. We at the moment we're sort of working out, whether we could license that technology or not. Right now, the only way we sort of deploy it is by saying, hey, it doesn't mean you have to take all the managed services from Celcom Solutions, by the way, but it does mean that you need a level of managed services for us to come in and be able to, adapt it, etc. But and then there would be some kind of minimal level support that would be necessary on an ongoing basis for you to be able to continue to use that, be able to modify it, to be able to update it, be able to do such things as changing various bits, change requests.
As I said, I see this happening across the industry. As I said, it's not just the telco side. It certainly is in other areas as well, because this is potentially one of the things that I think people are perhaps worried about with the cloud. Is it a threat? I think it's like every new technology, isn't it? People look at its strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats.
Yeah.
And I think that's some of it. But I think as a services company, people need to adapt to that one and work out how it is. As you said, the managed service is a great example there. So okay.
Yeah,
right,
but
obviously
from a managed services perspective, you're not expecting to deploy a team of a massive team of 20 people. You're expecting to, and it could get down to if it's just regression testing and continual regression testing that the customer is doing, then it could get down to a really minimal level of support. So as opposed to having a dedicated team employed through Celcom,
Interesting when you talk about the dedicated team. I remember for years when we were at Oracle, we had a particular customer who always wanted everyone on site 5 days a week, and then complained about the cost of having people on site. Do you think COVID's really pushed that along, and do you now see that the world has changed, so actually being on site is almost insignificant now?
Yeah. Well, it depends where you are in the world. Okay, so certainly in UK and Europe, I'm seeing less and less need for people to be in the office and remote, and people are trusted, dare I say it, to be professional. In various other places in the world, I'm seeing that there's a call to office, a call to come back to the office, and in essence, that's coming down to sort of trust and professionalism in those particular countries with those particular cultures. They're not as trusting as what you get in UK and Europe. So, but certainly with the advent of COVID, it has come a long way. Certainly, I don't expect everybody to be in the office every day. I don't expect everybody to be in the office 3 times a week. But obviously, I do expect to see people from time and again, and to see people for for various meetings and get-togethers, etc. I expect that, but in essence, as long as they can get there's some showing of getting the work done, why do you need to be in an office? It just doesn't make sense.
As you said, particularly if you can get good resources in potentially lower cost places as well.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, everyone wants everything cheaply, don't we?
Yeah, no, indeed, and they deliver. Obviously, that's the big key, is making sure that whilst working remote, they deliver. I don't, and clearly we do get some some complaints. Are people moonlighting? Are they doing more than one job because you can't actually see them? You can't see them on a day-to-day basis. There's various things like that
I
that
think
you
that
have to be
moonlighting is
careful of and
actually,
monitor.
yeah, and I think that's actually now a global problem, the sort of like moonlighting idea, because it is very easy to effectively, work more than one gig at the same time, and obviously if you're in place, then people know you're doing that. Do I think it's a problem that affects a big percentage of people? No, I don't.
Yeah,
But it's always going to be there. But then I guess the flip side is that just because you're at a desk doesn't mean that you're being busy. We can all do that, and I know many people who've made a career out of looking busy and not doing stuff. I won't look too sharply at myself. No. I've tried to do a bit more than that. But yeah, it's just it's an interesting. I think the world's changed significantly, and we need to change with it. I mean, what concerns me, I've got a son who's just started work actually yesterday, finish a degree, and he's actually going into an office, which is great, and he's meant to be in there, I think, 3 days a week
right.
minimum. But it worries me because where's the next group of people coming through? How are we training the next level of people to come through? Where do you pick up those basic skills about, I expect you here not at 9 o'clock because that's when you start. I expect you coming in at 9:15 or 8:30, so that if there is a delay, it's you're here, you can manage that type of thing. And how's an office decorum? How do you deal with all of that stuff? How do you dress? How do you act? It's I do worry for like the next generation coming through. And as I said, with my kids being of that type of age, it's quite a concern. And if there isn't that office environment, how do we do that? So maybe there's a different side that needs to be done.
Yeah, there is a lot to be achieved in a face-to-face, Chris. I mean, clearly, if you and I were having this face-to-face, we'd probably go and have a beer afterwards or whatever, But and then we'd talk. You do those coffee machine chats. You do get those ideas spawning off. So it is good to be in an office now and again, for sure. And like you say, 2 days a week, maybe 3. It is good, and it gives you a sense of camaraderie as well. So I don't think it's clearly what helps with the remote working and with what's happened in the pandemic is we've all got lives that we have to live. So, for example, you need to get your MOT done on your car, or you need to get, be in for an Amazon delivery or whatever it is, or, oh my goodness, the dog's taken ill, whatever it is, you've got those things. And in the old days, it was never really allowed, right? It was a bad thing.
It
if you
seems
have to go
archaic now, doesn't it? When you look back at it, it's like, God,
So definitely progress, definitely good progress. Who knows where it'll get to? I hope that it doesn't get to the point where, I know we all talk about the metaverse and what's to come and all the rest of it, and virtual interaction, etc. There's still got to be something about touchy-feely, right? I'm not saying touchy-feely by any means, but getting that that camaraderie through being
look back
together.
to us, when we first worked at Oracle, you didn't like me because I was trying to force you to use PJR as it was, and I got you in the office, we sat down, I showed you a graph in pretty colors, and then we went for a beer and had a good chat. And genuinely, I don't think we'd have ever got to a good point without actually having done that. I'd spoken to you lots, and there was a definite resistance there, and I get it. Like human nature, we don't like change. We all want to be somewhere different, yet we all resist change, which is slightly ironic. It's kind of
you're right, Chris, and clearly over a beer or coffee or whatever, you get to know somebody. You get to know somebody differently to if they're trying to push something onto you, or or you're trying, you start to understand the person.
How do you deal with that with your team in the subcontinent then? What type of things do you have? Do you have monthly, or weekly video calls? Do you have your camera on all the time so people can tune in or tune out?
We've started doing a lot more camera, right? So that's something that's changing. We've basically, at various points, we've said, look, we all need to be starting to use the camera now. And the reason for that is, you don't know what people are doing. You can see that people are listening, or they're taking part, and they're especially when you've got something like, I don't know, say a team of 5 leaders together or 6 leaders together. You need to be making sure that everybody is contributing. So the cameras are a good thing. It doesn't necessarily mean that you've always got to have your camera on, but essentially it's a good thing to do that sort of thing. What else do we do? Yeah, I mean, I'm continually on video conferences, on Teams calls, Zoom calls, whatever.
And still picking up the phone as well, Mark?
Yeah. Clearly I don't get many phone calls now apart from yourself, but seems a bit archaic that you actually get, lo and behold, get an SMS text message. What on earth is that these days?
It is funny though, isn't it? Because I think sometimes there's a lot that can be done in the conversation where, I've had this with different people over the last 2 or 3 years where I'm saying to them, I need to have a conversation I don't understand. And then I get back a long email and it's like, no, I need to have an interactive conversation. I need to ask you, you need to tell me why not, and I need to ask my questions. If we're doing this by email, this is going to take a long time. So I think in the telco world, actually, I think that there's a lot to be said for actually picking up the phone and talking to someone, whether it be a video call, everything's there, WhatsApp,
call, whatever.
Face, exactly. There's all those methods there.
Quite often we fall into email-itis, don't we, where message response, and you could have just picked up the phone.
Yeah. There was a guy in recruitment years ago.
Correct. Yeah.
Austin Awadzi, there's a name I haven't thought about for a long time, and he made the comment. He said that when with all this technology coming through, and this was just when we're on the cusp of having emails, he said you're getting all these tools which do everything apart from allow you to pick the phone up. And I do think that that's often where it's actually the real skill is in actually talking and having that two-way interaction with people.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm the dinosaur. I call myself a bit of a a filing cabinet and a fax machine wasn't such a bad thing. But I know technology's moved on, but sometimes I hark back to when it was a bit. I seem to be more productive sometimes back then, which is just kind of interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
The art of the phone call is perhaps lost on the younger generation, but there we are. We'll bring them into the future.
I'm sure.
So what do you see in the near future then, Mark? Before we wrap this up.
Near future, well, I guess we've already talked about some of the things. Obviously more and more around. Cloud native. I'm believing will become sort of more commodity. And certainly from those skills. Because clearly that's a big pain point now. You get somebody trained up, and before you know it, they're worth a lot more money than you're paying them. So let's get past that. Let's get past that to get to a point where the reality of cloud native and CI/CD pipelines, etc., is producing the business benefit we all expected. I think in terms of telecoms itself, we've talked about AI, but there's also various things coming through. I think we're still yet to see that niche case for 5G that means that 5G is the technology we've all been waiting for. A lot of people have talked about IoT, etc. But clearly, one thing that is sort of rapidly coming to fruition is the private 5G networks. Where people need to set up a private 5G network rapidly.
Wow.
Such as an event. How many times have you been at an event where you've had no signal, right? And the emergency services and the police, etc., have got a similar sort of thing, right? They can't get through to anybody. So, but if there's a private network there that nobody can use apart from the emergency services or whoever, broadcast TV, then that is got to be a sort of a way forward and sort of one of the cases for good cases for 5G and for network slicing, etc. So hopefully, some big use cases will come through. I am intrigued about the metaverse. I've got to say, not from all this buying stuff in the metaverse, but just from simple things like, how many people don't fix things and throw them in the bin because they can't fix them, right? So I believe that the metaverse can do things like, I've got a problem with my fridge at the moment. It's not freezing, and the question is, do I get a new fridge, or is it something simple like the defrost sensor that has gone wrong? Okay, so right now you get onto YouTube. Hopefully one day, there'll be something from the metaverse and some AI that will come along and say, let me take you through this. You wear sunglasses or whatever while you're in your own fridge or in, fixing.
I love that idea.
Whatever. So and hopefully that'll come along as well. So fingers
Yeah,
crossed.
no,
Fingers crossed.
I think that's great. I think that's a pretty good look at the future, actually, because I love that side of it. I hate the idea of sort of waste and throwing something away just because.
Yeah,
And as you said, it's usually down to, it could be a 2p transistor, but of course we don't necessarily have the skills. We're not, we're not like
yeah,
yeah, we're not as hands-on as we used to be, and maybe that's the the ultimate. But then I guess with things like Amazon and other things like that, we're used to something's broken, right? I'll order something, it'll be here
yeah.
tomorrow.
It's
People
cheap.
assume it,
It's from
but it's not
China,
green.
whatever.
But it's
It's
not
not
green, is it?
green. It's not
Yeah.
green. So I think this green
Mm.
mentality about recycling and sort of trying to fix things has got to come back in one way or another,
Yep.
Chris. It has
And even
to.
better for reusing, testing scripts and stuff like that. We're being as green as possible. So there we go. There we are.
Exactly.
All right, Mike.
Exactly.
Look, thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate it. And
No
yeah,
problem.
I'll look forward
Pleasure,
to the
Chris.
next time we catch up face to face rather than on this. So
Absolutely. Let's
speak to
make
you
it
fairly
with a
soon.
beer next time.
That's a good idea. That sounds good to me. Thanks, Mark.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Take care.